Hey guys, this is Jagdpanther and welcome back to World of Tanks. Woo! Now, today we're going to be having a look at the Tier 7 German TD, the Jagdpanther. She is a German, as I said, Tier 7 TD along the armoured line, with the ability of getting to two Tier 8 armoured German TDs, either the Jagdpanther 2 or the Ferdinand, and obviously I've researched the Ferdinand. Now, the Tier 7 German tank. You may be wondering, is she worth getting through the terrible, before I go on to my experience and my overall opinion slash thing? Because I have heard that the Jagdpanzer IV has been updated or buffed, but I am basing most of my knowledge on how much that thing wasn't so good on the last time I played it. So, but anyway, it's my opinion, blah blah blah, don't rant. So, continuing on, is she worth going up the tier 6, well, going up the Jagdpanzer IV? Yes. Very much yes. If you are struggling to get through the Jagdpanzer IV and you are really wondering whether it's worth getting it, I beg you to go on, because this thing is worth it, you know? It's that little bit of fresh air, it's that sort of, yes, I cannot suck. You know, you'll be a foe to be reckoned with in the field, and most certainly will be enjoyable to play in, especially when you've tiered. You know, once you've ranked up everything, it's even better. But to be able to just think, yes, I don't have to worry about being a shit tank in combat, that's what makes this thing, in my opinion, so much worth it. So, without further ado, let us have a look at those stats. So, first off, for stats. Hit points. You have 850. Now that's certainly a big boost to the 600 you have in the last tank, and that means you can at least take two high damage rolls from an IS tank, or three if it was a low damage roll. So yeah, you've definitely got a fair amount of hit points to play with. Obviously, as a tank destroyer, you shouldn't use them, but you have the luxury of, if you cock it up and someone does take a shot at you, you're not kind of buggered or screwed, as you would be in, say, the Stug, or especially the Stug, or the Jagdpanzer IV. Let's see how you compare, though, with your Tier 7 counterparts. So, starting off, we have the French. Now, they're not famous for having good hit points, but they are famous for not having good hit points. And they continue with this one, being at 820, so you're 30 better than him. Now, the Tier 7 Sture Emil has the same amount of hit points as you, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, on to the British. What did the British have? The 87. Almost said 88 there. And, oh, yeah, they have a fair amount. They even have a massive, you know, they have a lot more hit points than you. Pretty much almost, I think, even more or slightly less than the IS tank. Shit. But don't forget, the 87, for all its hit points and thick armor, its weak spots, very easy to spot, so might not count for much. Ah, Yankee, how do you feel? Well, unfortunately, the T25-2, as I don't have it, and it has an upgradable turret, I can't show you what its top hit points would be. But, considering that the T25AT is so similar, I'm going to assume that 840 hit points is possibly the same, if not slightly better than is this one. So, I'm going to say that the T25 is either slightly better than you, or is slightly worse than you. But in this case, for the T25AT, slightly worse than you by 10 hit points. And what about the Soviet Union? Well, all shitty Russian accents aside, the Su-152 has more hit points than you. 870, so 20 hit points more. Eee, surprising, eh? I mean, obviously not a major advantage, but, you know, every hit point counts. What about the other Tier 7 Russian Su-100M1? Well, 830... not really as good, no. It's not bad, it's not terrible like the French, but certainly not as good as, say, well, obviously the Su-152 for beginners, or the T25AT, and certainly not as good as the AT-7, but, you know, British tank, easy to spot the thing on that one. But still, so with regards to you with your standing, you're pretty much in the mid to higher part in the leaderboard for hit points. So that's not bad. I mean, that's certainly useful. You won't feel like you won't feel super vulnerable out there. Put it that perspective. Moving on to weight, you weigh 46.44 tons, and your maximum tonnage limit is 49. This is with all the equipment, by the way. This, in combination with your very nice 700 engine horsepower, it doesn't, for some reason, if you are wondering, it doesn't show your horsepower per ton in the little icon down below. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, with some vehicles, if you put your mouse over to hover over the vehicle icon in the lower part, it shows you a horsepower per ton thing. Shows your acceleration capabilities, basically. But it doesn't show you for TDs. Don't know why. But anyway, this combines to give you a lovely 55 kilometers per hour speed limit. That's really cool, because that means then you are fast, you're obviously a fast tank. You're not one of those sort of clumbering slugheads trying to desperately... You're not an 87 trying to crawl across the landscape and praying to God that wherever you're going to, there will be bad guys there. So yeah, definitely an advantage to have in that. And better still, you have 32 traverse speed. Now, this basically tells me this tank is maneuverable and mobile. I love a maneuverable and mobile tank destroyer, because it means it plays more to my style. I never like a rigidly slow, fat tank unless there's some major benefit behind it. But yeah, being able to swing left and right with your tank and actually get some good shots down onto your foe, which to a degree I have a replay of this kind of feature being utilized in action. Obviously it is assisted by having clutch braking on your driver, but regardless of that, it's certainly a good thing to have over 30 traverse speed, because then it gives you some... First of all, it gives you some peace of mind, because you know you can react faster to situations than, say, an 88 would, or perhaps an SU-152 would. And also, if you know how to use it properly, you can utilize it to a much better advantage than, say, someone who doesn't often use fast and mobile tank destroyers. Now, onto armor. You have 80mm at the front, 50 to the sides, and 40 to the rear. Now, another benefit to this tank destroyer is that, because it's based upon the Panther chassis, you've got some angling to help you as well. And it's actually pretty decent angling. Actually, better shows you on this side. Yeah, it's actually got some pretty decent angling, which adds some much needed millimeters worth of armor to your tank. How much millimeters? Well, let's go on to the Tank Inspector program to find out. So, here are the armor stats of the Jagdpanther, and as you can see, the 80mm worth of armor covers pretty much all of the front half of your tank. And how much armor do you get with the angling? Well, 100 roughly over on average, it's like 115 millimeters, either to 115 to 120 millimeters worth of armor, which is most certainly useful. Obviously, it's not perfect in the sense, well, you won't be able to bounce many shots off this, but if you are top tier in a high tier 5 match, you almost certainly have a luxury and an ability to relax a little. Obviously, if you're a lower tier, you're not really going to be able to bounce much, if anything, at this thing. Though surprisingly, there is one part of your vehicle which is very well armored, and that's your gun mantlet. This thing has 135 millimeters worth, but you won't actually see that because, as you can see, it's got crap. If you're looking at the equivalent meter down to the bottom right of your screen, you will no doubt see the amount of how much it raises up by the higher I go. It goes over 200 and 250. That's ridiculous. That's very well armored. And if you're wondering what it looks like in game, it's that massive piece of welding there. So one would assume if you are a very good tank destroyer utilizing your mobility and your maneuverability, your mobility and traverse speed, you'll be able to potentially, if you know what you're doing, be able to turn your tank left and right fast enough so that way when the enemy shoots, if he is trying to shoot at you, he might hit the gun mantlet and potentially ricochet off. And also, you've got the benefit of not much, but some protection from your gun mantlet being at 96mm worth. So this combined could quite easily give you, well, more than enough potentially to have a penetration but no hit. And if you are wondering if you're facing against tier 8 tanks, heavy tanks, the best kind of penetration you can get is like 227, I think. 227? So anything at that level, you can I mean, anything that if anything tries to shoot at you and it hits it there, probably yeah, you'd have to kind of angle it, but you most certainly could ricochet it off. There you go, 234. So, you know, if you know how to use gun mantlets, you can utilize this frontal gun mantlet, pardon me, for well, certainly against higher tier tanks if you are close enough to them, though at the same time, like I said, you're not really meant to be a frontline tank destroyer, you're just meant to be a tank destroyer which can do quite a lot of damage. Going on to your side armor, let's just have a look, see that's the 25 marker, so there you go. So going on to your side armor, naturally 50mm, you're not really going to see any much changing with the angling, maybe 51, but the doubling comes into effect, which basically means whenever you shoot something and your shell is doubly as good as the armor that you're shooting something against, it basically just makes it easier for the shell to penetrate, and it just basically means you're screwed. An interesting fact is that this part of your tank isn't actually 40mm, if you want to see it once again. There you go, which actually has more angling at the back than you do on the side. But yeah, so this part of your tank is not the rear half of your tank. Which is quite interesting to note. But yeah, anyway, so you're not really going to have too much protection from the sides for this thing, which is a bit of a shame. But, you know, that said, the side of this vehicle is the greatest weakness, and as are most tanks. Moving on down to 40mm worth for your rear, pretty much that said, you know, 46mm worth, you know, you can fight off tier 1 tanks, tier 2 tanks, however, watch out. But yeah, so nothing of value here. Definitely not going to be ricocheting or doing anything. The added, though, actually another side note is that actually you get it also not only as a side weakness down there, but also as gun mantlet weakness, which is what I will go on to when it comes to shooting at this thing. The spaced tracks do give you a nice 90mm worth of, you know, armor, but like I said, nothing of real value to this vehicle. So, if you are engaging a Jagdpanther, where do you want to go for? Well, in-game, naturally, there are two very nice targets which are very easy to point out. First of all, the Underglacius. Everyone knows that an Underglacius of a tank, in Germany at least to my knowledge, houses the transmission and also gives you a better chance at setting an enemy tank on fire, and most certainly buggering over this vehicle's mobility. Another thing to keep aware of is also the machine gun port being humongous. If you can shoot that bit there, you'll no doubt hit through 40mm worth of armor and also potentially kill the radio operator as well. This will definitely help in knocking out that tank's communication capabilities. But yeah, so generally speaking, I mean, obviously, apart from that, if you haven't really got a shot at the Underglacius and your accuracy is Russian, just go for the hull. You know, the hull armor is not thick at all, really easy to go through, and just put a number of shots into this part. Generally speaking, if you can shoot obviously around the mantlet, it'll be better, and at distances the side is very easy to shoot. So just make sure to go for the hull armor around here. The lower you can go in the hull armor, the better for some reason. If you can get for a shot to here, go for it, because depending on how it goes, you will actually get a nice decent shot in there. But yeah, generally speaking, I mean, obviously most of the time you'll face Jagdpanthers shooting at you, possibly going down a hill, which actually works more to your advantage than to his, because obviously the lesser angled he is, the more chances of you shooting right through him. For those looking at this bit as the commander cupola, there is a weakness, very lightly armored weakness, but a weakness nonetheless. But the armor, or the look of the cupola himself, the look at the cupola, it's tiny. It's really, really tiny. So I wouldn't recommend going for that. Everywhere else, here's fine, Under Glacier's fine. Not really go for that. It's just a bit too much of a risk if you want to get a commander shot. But apart from that, though, nothing much else to really shoot at this thing. And as for Yo's trying to drive this thing, as long as you can, or primarily avoid being shot, because this thing doesn't have any armor really to speak well of, and if you are spotted, try and make sure that your gun mantler is utilized in your defense, because it might just save you. You never know. But anyway, so that's all the armor for this thing. I will see you back at the garage. Now, onto view range. You have 370 meters worth of view range. That's pretty good for a tier 7 tank destroyer, and certainly helps you when you're on certain maps like Redshire, now the non-campy version, Erlenberg, if that's how they call it, then Winterman with the 2 bridges. Any basically medium to longer distance, you will have you'll have a nice, comfortable view range to be able to deal with and destroy enemy forces. Let's see how you compare though with your tier 7 counterparts that are close top, because going up against open top would be stupid, as they already have an advantage with them being open topped. Your French have 350, so, you know, not a bad effort, only being 20 worse, but still only 20 worse than you. The British, with their high hit points, have not as good view range. That's going to be as bad as the French. That's a bad label to have on you. What about the Americans? Now, for those out there who say that the T25-2 is open topped, or those who thought it is, it kind of is and isn't. The first turret apparently is. Oh, it is. And the second turret apparently isn't. So, it kind of counts. And it counts a lot because you have 380. So, oh, the Americans, they're beating us by 10. God damn it. But oh well, you know, you couldn't be perfect, that's for sure. Still, so the American T25-2 is better than you. What about the T25AT? Not as good as you, once again, by 20 meters. So, you're still up there, you're not doing too bad. And, let's face it, Russia. Any experienced Russian tanker will know that these guys suffer from short-sightedness badly. Oh boy. Yes, the SU-152. I wonder what it is. Oh, would you look at that? 330. 40 worse than you. I'm not really surprised in all essence. But what about the SU-100M1? Oh. Hang on a second. Whoa. A Russian tank with decent view range. Logic, explain. So yes, the SU-100M1 actually has a decent-ish range. It's actually third place. It's better than both Britain and France. Oh dear God. Britain, how far have you fallen? Yes, so but for you, you're in second place with only 10 meters difference between yourself and the T25AT. Sorry, /2. So that's something to be proud of, and certainly it helps, and obviously with the assistance of binoculars, that 370 can be a lot better. But, that said, you now don't have to think, crap, I gotta buy some bloody binoculars in order to get this thing to work, which is certainly a useful knowledge to have. Going on to signal range, I'm just starting to smile again, because you know why? Or for anyone who doesn't know why, Fug 12, yes! And for anyone who does know why, they're like, oh god, here he goes again. Yes, this is the Fug 12 radio for German vehicles. And if you haven't watched my videos before, I really like this radio. I found this to be the most handiest of purchases to have on Germany, because you can get this radio so far back, and it saves you so much time. And it gives you an amazing 710 meter signal range, which is fantastic. I love this thing, and if you get it, you will love it too. It's super handy. Let's have a little comparison to see how it fares in competition. Les Français. So hopefully, let's hopefully that we can make a hat trick for this one. Oh, no, wrong one. The French get a Yeah, the frogs get that. They may not have as much health as you. They may not be able to see as far as you, but goddamn, well, they'll be able to hear you when you're coming. That's like a middle finger coming out of the grave, certainly. What about the British? The 87 with lots of hit points, not as good view range, gets a tier 8 radio, 700 signal range, so not as good as you, but not by much. So a close second behind you, or a close third behind you. What about the Yankees? The T-25-2. Oh dear, tier 9 radio. Oh, 615. So crap radio in comparison. 100 behind. What about the T-25AT? Is it the same? It is the same. So the Americans with potential more hit points for the T-25-2, better view range than you, crap radio range in comparison. And what about Russia? Well, once again, Russia is kind of deaf and somewhat blind, except Russia's SU-152 has 625, so a notable effort by the SU-152, but not as good. So, our Soviet SU-152 is trying to make a comeback. Not so, though, for the SU-100M1, only having a very disastrous 525 signal range. That is a disadvantage. Yes, quite a disadvantage. So, once again, though, you're third, which isn't bad. Not third, second, sorry. You're second in the... So, like I said, this thing, you'll notice that the stats for this thing, while they don't put you leaps and bounds ahead of the rest, but that said, you now don't have to think, crap, I gotta buy some bloody binoculars in order to get this thing to work, which is certainly a useful knowledge to have. So, onto signal range. You have 710 meters worth of signal range. This is thanks to my favorite radio upgrade ever, the FUG-12. Yes! The FUG-12, and it is an amazing radio. Many of you who have watched my videos may note that I absolutely adore this thing. For any of you guys who haven't, though, I absolutely adore this thing. So yeah, any of you who probably have watched it are saying, oh, for God's sake, not again, Crap Hunter. Shut up and get on with it. And I will, don't worry. But anyway, yes, this is the FUG-12. You can purchase at a tier 4 tank, and it sets you for pretty much till tier 9. So, highly recommend you get this radio at early as possible. So yeah, you have a very good base to start off with. Let's see how you compare against your counterparts. So, the French, lower hit points than you, lower view range than you, tier 10 radio. Bugger. Yes, the French get a tier 10 radio, which gives them 750 signal range. Shit. So they kind of blow you out the water. What about... Actually, no. What about your other German counterpart as well, the Studer Emil? Well, he gets a tier 8 radio, which is 700. So not as good as you. What about the British? Well, the British has this, the tier 8 radio, which, once again, 700 signal range, which basically means this and the Studer Emil are fighting for second place. Well, sorry, no, third place, as you're only 10 above. The Americans. Now, the Americans, this one might have more hit points than you and has better view range than you by 10, but what about radios? Don't fear. This thing isn't exactly the best tier 9 radios. They get the tier 9 radios, but it's terrible. It's quite bad in comparison. 615 range. So yeah, not so good. Not so good at all. What about the T-25AT? Same thing. 615 range. So not too good at all. Moving on to Russia, many of you may know that Russian doesn't really have good view range and good radio range, but you'll be noted to be surprised that the SU-152 gets a tier 9 radio, which, okay, isn't perfect, but it's not bad. 625, that's 10 better than the Americans, so this has an advantage over America. Not bad. Certainly, it's not great, but it's certainly not bad. What about the SU-100M1? Tier 8 radio? Really crap as well. Worse than the Americans. Shit. Yeah, this thing is quite poor. So, Yeah. Yes, the SU-100M1, not good on health, decent view range, quite poor radio. So, yeah, unfortunately, not so good for that one. But for you, you're pretty much, once again, in the higher leagues, not as, like, you're not the all-reigning supreme champion with some things, like with regards to hit points, view range and signal, but at the same time, you've got enough to sort of say, yes, you've got enough to be able to feel confident with your capabilities as a tanker. And most certainly, in most cases, like checking out for certainly when it comes to the radio, you'll have the ability to make sure that you can like communicate effectively with your team and your platoon. With view range, you can get yourself into a position without the use of binoculars and defend it relatively well, spotting multiple targets. And with the hit points, you have the abilities to take a number of hits before eventually you go down on a ball of flame. So all in all, this tank is very much there. You know, it's not an averagely crap tank, it's actually an averagely good tank. You know, you're up at the higher league sort of thing. So that is pretty awesome. Now, onto the gun. You have a pretty decent selection of guns to choose from on this thing. Two of which you'll have already unlocked on the Jagdpanzer IV. The L56 and the L70. Now, if you've grinded straight from the Jagdpanzer IV, then I would highly recommend you go for the L70. Don't even think of bothering with this gun. It's still just as crap as it was in the last tank, save maybe a few rounds extra to fire at. Still a hunk of junk, and it's a real shame because it was such a famous gun in real life. Ugh. Anyway, so the L70, as a stock gun, you've used it a lot of times. Decent firing rate, decent pen, average damage at this level at least. You know, it's good for, it's okay for a stock gun, and you know, you'll manage. However, in recent times, there has actually been a little bit of an interesting note that I will point out to you guys who are going up German tank destroyers. The first gun that you would normally unlock, the L71 88mm, it used to be that you had to grind through and actually unlock it, whereas now, if you went up the glass cannon line and got the Nashorn and fully upgraded it, you'll have got the L71 not only for this vehicle, but for the Jagdpanther as well, and the 30 and the Jagdpanther II. But it's more important for the Jagdpanther because now, instead of having to upgrade and hang on, let's go to the Jagdpanther. Instead of having to spend, I don't know how to find the thing. Yeah, instead of having to, it doesn't say. God damn it. Well, instead of having to research the L71, you can quite happily buy the damn thing and never have to use those two guns on this. Handy or what? Really useful, guys. Certainly a reason to go up the glass cannon line, if only for this, you know. And the L71 is absolutely brilliant, as you may know from my Nashorn review. But anyway, onto the 88mm here. So yeah, pretty much the same gun, I believe, from the Nashorn. 9.84 rounds a minute with a experienced crew, vents, and rammer. You'll get it up to 10 rounds, maybe 10.5 rounds a minute. Pretty awesome. Your penetration, 203 on a tier 7 tank. Fantastic. 240 damage, 0.32 accuracy. Only downside, rather shitty aiming time of 2.3 seconds. But certainly a useful gun. Very useful indeed. Now, the second upgrade you'll get is the 105mm L52. Now, this gun, obviously, as it's a higher caliber, less rounds a minute, and you lose 3mm worth of penetration, but you gain 320 damage, and you lose a bit of accuracy as well, but you get an incredible 1.7 seconds aiming time. Now, there's going to be something I'm going to discuss here, because for some players out there, you may not want to play with premium, you may not want to go for it, because this thing is, both of these guns, what I'm trying to say, work brilliantly for your tank. I'm going to say that both guns, you don't have to dump one as soon as you've upgraded to this one. This one is fantastic, and this is the one I currently use on my Jagdpanther. But at the same time, the L71 certainly has advantages to be utilized in the field. Certainly rate of fire, accuracy, and extra 3mm worth of penetration. But that said, you know, I'm going to throw it to you guys, because in a sense, both of these guns work absolutely fine on the battlefield. Obviously, the L52 is certainly a damage dealer and will help you a lot when it comes to facing against tier 8 tanks, but if you're the kind of person who likes to shoot from further distances, doesn't really want to have to concern himself with the extra expense of 105mm shells, then this gun is also for you as well. So yeah, definitely an advantage if you want to, you know, if you want to utilize the 88mm as well. So yeah, both of these guns, great guns to utilize, and I most certainly, you know, both of these guns I would certainly use. If I didn't have that one, I'd be using that. If that was crap, I'd be using that, and as this isn't crap, I am using that. So, you know, definitely useful to have these guns on the tank, regardless of which one you choose. Now, on to equipment and crew skills. This is basically my recommendations of what equipment you should have and what crew you should use. Crew skills. So, anyway, first of all, the equipment. And naturally, you will want improved vents to Class 2 medium caliber gun rammer. Really handy, actually, because both of these things really cheap. This one costs only 150,000, and this one costs 200,000. Now, I have slunk on a binocular telescope for my third one because I had it spare. But the third choice is pretty much up to you. Now, I wouldn't recommend, however, for those who are thinking on it, of getting an enhanced gun laying drive if you have the 105mm PAC L52, because your 1.7 second aiming time is pretty much perfect. This gives you the ability to go for anything else, probably either camo, because camo is certainly useful to a tank like yourself, or this one as well, binocular telescope, probably in reverse order. That's more important than that, but camo is still pretty important as you are a tank destroyer. Medium sportliner I wouldn't really consider to be a super important thing, but if you are having difficulty with armor, or if you are like the kind of person who likes to get up right close and fast, then certainly not a bad idea. Definitely adds protection to your crew, and it also protects you from armor ramming and explosions. Not really worth it getting coated optics, and those two you probably won't need because, well, if you're having to get that, or if you're wanting to get that, you're not really using the tank destroyer correctly. Apart from that, ammo racking, I don't know. I don't think you have too much problems. And once again, there'll be a skill to deal with this as well, so don't really worry about that. But certainly for the 105mm, get the binocular telescope, and second in the list, camo net. Third in the list, medium sportliner if you really are desperate. For those who use the L71, enhanced gun laying drive would definitely be a good idea, because obviously that 2.3 second aiming time, any and all abilities to reduce it would be great. Binocular telescope would take second place, camo net third, medium sportliner fourth. That's pretty much the only differences between that, on that stuff. But still, you know, certainly a useful thing. Going on to your skills for your crew, your commander either repairs. I mean, I stick repairs on because I'm somewhat hyper aggressive, so I often get my track shot. But if you're the kind of person to hang back, certainly camouflage to 100%. Then once you hit 100%, and I'm going to note here, you also will need to spend some time with another skill. It doesn't matter what, but just put yourself maybe 20 or 30% into the next skill, because when it comes to dropping it for a perk, you take a penalty for dropping the skill. And if you go from 100% to switching immediately to 6 cents or something, you lose like I think 5% as a penalty. So that basically means you'll have to regrind it up again, and that's a real pain in the arse. So, or perhaps more, I can't remember. So what I recommend you guys do is spend a few more matches with the 100% skill on one, and then go to another skill on another. When you get that, you should then have 6 cents and like a small percentage of your next skill / perk that you want to grind up. So yeah, do that and then get 6 cents, because to know when you've been spotted is far greater than to hear the shell hitting you to know that you've been spotted. After that, Possibly, you know, once again, go up to the top. Possibly get Jack of all trades, perhaps, or Eagle Eye. But really, it's about Sixth Sense. Getting Sixth Sense is very important. The Gunner, because you're not turreted, you don't have to worry about Snapshot. All you have to worry about is getting Deadeye, because that basically allows you to do more damage to the enemy crew, vehicle modules and crew. After which, do the same routine with the skills, and then get Designated Target. This basically gives you the ability to highlight your opponent for a few seconds longer to allow your team to either shoot him or for you to shoot him and kill him. Certainly a handy skill. Your driver, obviously clutch braking. Certainly clutch braking, because that allows you to extend your traverse speed and make it even better, which is awesome. After which, I would recommend off-road driving. This basically reduces the ground resistance when driving on soft and moderately soft terrain. Basically, it increases your maneuverability and acceleration, thus making your tank even more awesome when it comes to combat. After which, probably go with repairs or something, then eventually swap it out for preventative maintenance. This basically reduces the chance of you having a fire. But as you are a tank destroyer, I wouldn't really value it higher, as you're meant to not really be spotted. Maneuverability certainly is more important than fighting to a degree with this thing. Your Radio Man doesn't really have that many useful skills. Maybe, I don't know why I've got situational awareness when I've got a decent view range. Probably when I was younger and had no idea. There isn't really any decent-ish skills. I might actually drop that. There you go. So yeah, you take a penalty from... Oh, it's 2% on this one. But anyway, so you take a penalty after you drop your skill. And if you want to spend some cash training it up again, and I'll just put to, like, repairs. There you go. So yeah, as you can see, you take a bit of a penalty drop when you swap skills. So especially when it comes to... when you get 100% on another skill. So anyway, either repairs or firefighting, then something like... I don't know, to be honest with you. There isn't really anything I wouldn't really... I mean, maybe Call for Vengeance if you're desperate to have a perk for your Radio Man. But not really. I mean, signal boosting perhaps, which is also a skill. But generally speaking, I would say repairs and camo probably are rated higher than something like that, because you've already got a great signal range and a great view range. So, yeah. And you've got binocs if you've got, you know, what I've got. So still, not, you know, pretty important, but not that important. Finally, for your loader, you will want to give him repairs, then... you know, obviously a little higher skill with another one, then swap it for safe stowage. Safe stowage basically increases the ammo rack durability, and it makes it a hell of a lot cheaper than buying yourself a safe ammo racking thing. This basically just prevents the chances of it happening. After which, you want to do the same process again, this time swapping it out for Adrenaline Rush. Adrenaline Rush basically means when you're in combat and you have less than 10% hit points remaining, you will have an increased firing rate, potentially saving your ass. Certainly a useful skill to have if most of your team are down and it's up to you to win the game. So, no pressure. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to actually take you to a replay of a game I had in this thing, which I think was a previous patch before. So, and there will also be a bit of a result screen from the previous patch as well. So, yeah, I'll see you guys in that replay, and then what we'll do is we'll do a live replay afterwards. And we're back, and currently on Comrin. This is the Tier 7 game in patch 8.10. And, let's go! So yes, I'm currently on, I was with the Jagdpanther, fully upgraded, everything sorted. And when I'm on this tank on my, when I'm on this game on my own, like, when I'm on this map on my own, this isn't Comrin, this is Swamp, sorry. Yeah. When I'm on this map on my own, I do like to move over to this side of the town, or the map. There we go. Because with the tank destroyer, you get a nice coverage of this section here and this section around here as well. Plus, also going close to the hill, you also don't have to worry about being outflanked there. Slightly laggy, I think, as I played this without recording. So it might cause a little bit of problems. So at the moment, nothing really happening. Just currently trying to figure out where the enemy are, kind of scan the environment a little. that 1.7-second aiming time come in. There's a target. Unfortunately, I didn't get a shot in, expecting the T-29 to come along, and bang. Now, I hadn't actually noticed the VK-20-01 coming to position, and I kind of spent a little too much time focusing, and then I got tunnel shot by VK. So the VK shot, I luckily turned around just in time to deal with it, and then kind of got pinned down a bit here, because the VK-20-01, I was then sort of started to focus on the other tank. I get a nice high damage roll against that T1 heavy. Then more of the tanks come along. I try and move into position, but just when I want to take a shot, my very, very annoying KV-1 gets in the way. So I think, right, that guy's an asshole, but I can't do anything about it. So I got to pull back, ever conscious about what's going on to my right, oh, sorry, my left. Then I think, right, well, we're not going to do anything with those two bastards constantly spotting us for their artillery. So I decide to push up slightly towards the VK and try and take some shots against the Chi-Nu. Doing a bit of a bold maneuver here, because I could get shot by pretty much everyone there. And then I decide to do return the favor to the VK. Bang! Doing a nice, just a point below damage roll shot. And I was like, ha ha! Then I go on to the Chi-Nu, once again trying to focus on the enemy tank. I fire, clutch shot, misses, unfortunately. I then focus on the Chi-Nu, trying to get a shot in. The enemy Leopard decides to take his place, so I'm more than willing to oblige. Then the T-29 comes into visual. I try and see if he's there. Trying to focus on both left and right. Trying to think, right, which way do I go, which way do I go? KV, then I get another view at the T-29. I take my time, aim, Schütze, get a shot, nice damage roll. The T-20, this is the annoying thing, I couldn't quite see through the bushes. Unfortunately, I shot and missed. Our KV-1 is slowly being annihilated by the Chi-Nu and his friend. I try and to get more shots into the T-29. I shoot, the shell unfortunately ricochets, and then I get a perfect shot, only when I'm reloading. So I try and get so I wait for him to come along, I try and shoot again. Unfortunately, he moves a little further forward. I move first, trying to get a shot in, and then I shoot, bang, another bloody ricochet. Now he's focused completely on me. I've got to try and move, angle my armor just in time. I shoot, bang, I finally get his damaging roll, and he gets killed. So very fortuitously ricocheted the shot. Very handy on that one. That's what I love about a vehicle with good turning traverse, is the ability to be able to dodge and get out of there. The KV-1 miraculously survives his assault against the Chi-Nu and the other tank. There is the VK, very much low on health. I move into this position to try and provide support. I spot the AMX M445. I get a nice, not a bad damage roll, not high enough, but certainly good. The Su-85, using the wrong gun, misses completely. I take another small damage roll. I don't think I got penned from that one. And then I try and go for one more shot against the AMX, and then this gets bothered. He gets shot again. I'm about to get a shot in fire, and it ricochets. And then I start taking damage. So I rapidly fix my treads and try and back out of there when I get a nice juicy TOG to shoot at. I do feel sorry for the TOG driver. I do apologise for milking your hit points, but target's a target. So I actually surprisingly get the kill from that one. But unfortunately our fuel tank was hit, so my engine power is now further reduced. But if I'm not mistaken, the shot I got from was, oh, it was over there. So my fuel got hit, and now I'm very much more careful, because I'm now within one-shot range for a fair amount of vehicles. So I'm going to play a little bit more cautiously, but nonetheless further up. So at this point, I'm trying to get a shot in on that AMX M445, when I realise it's kind of pointless me being here, because I'm just going to kind of be an attributary factor. And as there were multiple tanks over to the north here, I thought we might as well try and provide support to the two Tier 7 heavies that are there. So really could have done with a better engine. With the tracks not being, really could have done with the engine, the fuel not being knocked out. So I try and rush as fast as I can to help out my comrades. Flak bus knocks out the Tier 7 tank. Unfortunately, I'm not fast enough to save the T-29, and oh, so close, so close, so close, so close. Oh, come on, you fat bitch, move up the bloody hill. Then I spot the Su-152. And then I'm like, oh shit, he's looking at me. So I back as far away as possible, but nonetheless determined to get rid of this bastard. And I honestly thought I was going to die here, simply because the E25 and the SU-152 certainly were in very good defensible positions. I throw a shot in, not sure where that went, but then the SU-152 shows himself once more, and I'm like, right, I really need to hit this shot, and gods be praised, the gods, they gave me some beautiful shots there. And it's so that at this point, the enemy AT2 is there, and so I try and go for his point, but instead the shell magnetically goes to the most armoured part of the vehicle. Fires, and he just misses. Ever aware of the E25, I spot him just as he reverses back. He must have sixth sense. There's the AT2 trying to shoot me. I finally realise he might do something and actually pen me or start using high explosive. And he actually, yep, speaking of the devil, he uses a premium shell against me, which is quite cute in my opinion, but whatever. So now the game is pretty much sorted. I thank my comrades for knocking out the AT2 because that means now I can help them out, but I'm still very cautious and careful about facing off against that E25 as of course I could easily get spotted by him and killed by him, or could be spotted by him and then killed by Artie. So I told the team, rush the bugger. He's certainly got enough health to make it a challenge. The Tiger 1 and the Cromwell are surprisingly dying. I think the Cromwell was at full health as well, which is very surprising. The Tiger 1 get a nice shot into him. I try and support. Bang! Slam dunked a shot, which was quite nice. And the Tiger 1 is safe, which is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, now this is pretty much a clean-up operation. There's the enemy artillery. I think, ooh, can I get a shot? Can I get a shot? Can I get a shot? Taking a bit too long. Bang! Clutch shot to win. So there you go. Game over. This thing taking quite a severe amount of punishment thanks to having an extra amount of hit points. As you can see, a number of shots hit. Mostly the shots hit this side. This side not so much, but generally speaking, the hull here took a number of shots. Took a nice couple of ricochets to my gun mantler. This one I don't think actually penned. I think this one just penetrated, but did no. Perhaps he did penetrate, but didn't do any damage. Certainly took a number of side shots as well from that VK2108, but unfortunately my computer isn't so good, so it doesn't store all of them. But certainly this thing can take an amount of punishment in this kind of matching and survive to do, well, a fair amount of damage, which you will see in the after action replay. So I will see you back in the garage. So here's the results of that replay. Oh wow. Yes. Yeah, there's a good day for you. Thanks to a lot of missions as well, which is kind of cool. That is kind of awesome. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, that is I mean, obviously it's a special event weekend, so obviously I got a lot more experience than usual. Oh, please say, oh no, oh bugger! I just realized all that experience I grabbed just went into another tag, not into the crew. God damn it. But yeah, so yeah, that's I did nearly 4k damage to our opponents, which is absolutely brilliant. Definitely shows the advantages of the gun and most certainly the maneuverability. And this is the thing about this tank destroyer that I find to be extremely useful, is just the fact that you can be fast and maneuverable. Yes, we were hampered by the fact that the enemy did get our engine, but, you know, we were able to react quickly enough to be able to deal with it. There were points in that game where I thought, honestly, I was going to get myself killed, but somehow we were able to turn it around and produce stuff like that, and that is what makes me love this thing so much, is just that maneuverability and flexibility. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next match. And we're back, and actually quite relieved that the world of tanks has kind of changed a bit. Well, basically, before, I tried doing this recording once before, like I'd actually tried doing this. This is kind of the second time I've done a review on this thing. And previously there was a very bad internet around. Like I was getting 160 ms on average just by playing the game without recording. So certainly grateful about that. But anyway, going back to the game now. So yeah, I'm in a tier 7, nice tier 7 matchup. I'm one of the top tiering tanks as well. And we are in not an encounter match, but a standard match in Ruhenberg on fire. And as my computer is quite poor, I unfortunately cannot show you the greater details of the game, but hopefully what we can do is do well in this game long enough to be able to prove that I don't suck in this thing. So we'll take a defensive position here. The enemy tank will undoubtedly try and go through that point. Bino's active, and what a surprise. Bang! Backing off, backing off, backing off. Now, if I went try to go around the corner, this IS is going to make a mistake. Ooh, very fortuitously, he missed. But I daren't go. Could do with a few more bits of heavy support around here. The T-29 is going to camp. And I unfortunately have no abilities as to get a shot in without taking damage myself. So I'm going to have to wait for a bit. And an enemy tank is apparently going to outflank us, so let's try and get a shot in on that little bastard. And he's already been taken care of. Our artillery is taking very wise cover behind. For once, camping in the base is a good idea. Not sure why this guy isn't moving. We could do with him moving up. There is the enemy KV-1S. Spent a little bit too much time focusing on the map. Oh shit, there's a flak bus. Ha ha ha! It's not an upgraded one. And he is a stupid flak bus. Oh, that was a miracle. Right, okay, we actually have his body to... Oh, shit! That was a clutch shot and a half, but a necessary one as well. Really need that guy knocked out. Sture Emil is always a... Oh, shit! Right, he fired. I have a much better reload than him. Oh, bloody hell, I had a lag spike. And it didn't help that the IS pushed me. Oh shit. At the moment we are winning 4 kills to their... Okay, we've just lost a Hellcat. 4 kills to their 1. But unfortunately, I really don't like how we're all spread out. And now that enemy tank has got me completely pinned, so I'm going to have to kind of help defend this region. So fall back a bit. Not as far... Okay, the enemy T-29 is YOLOing up, which is a bit of a clever / dumb idea. Dumb in the sense that I'm here. Clever in the sense... Ah, come on. Come on, give me a shot. Shot. Bang! Nice shot into him, and that T-29 is now dead. The Sture Emil is going to make a push for it. I'm going to try and see if I can get a rear shot of that guy. Swing round. Oh, clutch shot. Stupid. Right, just focus on it now. I can just track him. That would be brilliant. Right, done a nice high damage roll. He's going to try and make a break for it. I need to get in and get a shot in. No, unfortunately not. He would have been dead by now if I hadn't missed my first clutch shot. Dangerous move I'm pulling. Clutch in like a bastard lucky prick that I am. KV-1 is there. KV-1S isn't really paying attention, and he is now dead. Swinging round left. Didn't really do this much in this match, unfortunately. Certainly wish I could have done more. Pinned down mostly, but that's not really an excuse. That just means I'm not as good player as I thought I once was. But still, survived long enough to do something, which is important. We got 2 kills. I'm not complaining. I wish the clutch shots had made it, and that's the game. So, yeah, 2 games and 2 victories actually. Huzzah! That's a rarity, isn't it? But yeah, so 2 victories, and it's a ×3 event, so that's pretty useful. Mastery badge 3rd class. Did like 3rd the most damage. Surprisingly, our flak bus did amazingly well. So either that guy has pure luck, or fuck, that's a good player. Kind of trumps us a little bit. Oh well. But then that said, you know, lucky he was on our side, not theirs. But still, good game. Not one of my best, I will admit. I could have done much better in that. If I hadn't got myself pinned down at that corner, I probably could have done a bit more to help out in the game. But at the same time, I will take a win. And also, I will take a win which doesn't involve me dying in the process. So it's a win-win-win in that case. Anyway, I'm going to call it for the review. So thank you. Oh yes, summary before I do the call. So yes, the Jagdpanther as tier 7. It is certainly a useful tank, and most certainly is something which, if you are desperate to get a decent German tier 7 tank, like if you've heard of such tales as the 30 and you think, oh, is the tier 7 going to be good though? Is it going to be worth it? I would say this tank is certainly worth it, and certainly is a breath of fresh air after the Jagdpanzer IV, which I once again only can feel. I can like show my sincere sympathies to you guys who are grinding it, because it is a bitch. The lack of weaponry on that thing versus this thing is just amazing, and also it's very also the tactics can be varied. You can use the other gun if you prefer using the L71.